Europeans often call be the one that's gonna bring them up, and you're gonna have to prove to me that most of y'all weren't born.
Okay, thank you so much for holding.
So yeah, I can.
I know, that is so cute. Okay, so what we doing? We doing 4 rounds and one introduction round. The introduction round gonna be 3 minutes, and the 4 rounds is gonna be 5 minutes each. Okay, y'all good? Black first.
Yeah, hold on 1 second, P. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. TV, did you hear that? Hold on 1 second. I'm good with that.
Okay, well let me know when y'all ready so I can get it ready. So I can get the timer ready for y'all.
Y'all, everybody, this is Black.
Okay, so what we doing? We
Letters, our as prisoners of war, which is something that through the transatlantic slave trade, and you just being, really obtuse because of the particular trauma and stigma that's attached. Transatlantic slave trade happened is because the transatlantic slave trade happened is because the Portuguese was looking for gold, and they were looking for other means of making that we can get into in my second round. But thank you. That the transatlantic slave trade is a lie. That's what Black First is going to do. I'm going to counter all of that. And let me, even while I'm here, because I know we only have a short amount of time, just to give you guys an understanding, this is the NBCI Trust. This is coming from NBCIT.org, and it talks about this thing, understanding and changing the transatlantic slave trade denialism. Understanding and challenging the transatlantic slave trade denialism. Transatlantic slave trade denialism is defined by the National Black Culture Information Trust Incorporation or incorporate as the practice of denying the existence of the transatlantic slave trade or minimizing its role in the forced migration of African peoples to the Americas and the system of chattel slavery. The purpose of the TSTD is usually to facilitate the denial of African ancestry among African Americans and instead falsely claim to or overstate indigenous or Native American ancestry. TSTD includes African American, and Indigenous American historical erasure. Again, some of the false claims that are made. The transatlantic slave trade did not happen. The transatlantic slave trade was a minimum and insignificant. The transatlantic slave trade happened in reverse, and so on and so forth. All of those things that we've heard. So now it's time to get into it. A Black First.
All right, how y'all folks doing? That was interesting. Black first. Well, my cousin Meta decided that she felt like, hey, why argue with you about slaves when we can talk apprenticeships and Christian servants and Negroes who all came by way of Europe? Now, when we talk the origins of African slave trade, did you forget the intraday slave trade history, Black first? You know, intraday means same day, right? As in, if I bring you from one place and bring you to another and sell you, you're sold. Now, due to the fact that most of the population of you so-called Black Americans were born here in the Americas, we're going to go through those ship logins today, Black first. And you're going to be the one that's going to bring them up. And you're going to have to prove to me that most of y'all weren't born here in the Americas. Homegrown Negroes, that is. Because y'all are the descendants of the Indians. But Penn, you can go ahead and let him go ahead and pop this thing off. We finna get straight to it. We finna get straight to it. Straight to it. I'm gonna sit and waste no goddamn time. Let go, Black fur. Go on switch that on around. Let him go in and drop his first gem. I don't need the whole 5 minutes. You heard me, Pam? Did that nigga walk off?
What you said?
I said I don't need the whole 5 minutes on the intro.
Oh, okay. All right. So we about to do 4 rounds, 5 minutes each. After we done with the 4 minutes, 4 rounds, 5 minutes each. We gonna take a poll. If it's a tie, we gonna do one more round. Y'all cool with that?
Yep.
All right, let's get it started. All right, Venus.
Can y'all see this?
I'm finna put you on the big screen. I'm finna change this 5 minutes.
Okay. Right. So before we actually get all the way started, I'll start showing my sources. I want y'all to understand that my opponent, take notice and take your pen and paper out. He's going to overcompensate with a whole lot of information, but it's not going to stay on the topic of whether or not the transatlantic slave trade is a lie. In fact, he's going to try to gaslight you, which means make your eyes and ears don't believe what you're seeing and what you're hearing. He's really, really good at that. So again, we just have to take note of it. He's also going to use red herrings. Again, something that's going to take us off of what the subject matter and run into a whole bunch of stuff talking about Moors and Huguenots and all of that type of stuff. He's also going to straw man my argument by trying to oversimplify it and again run away from what I'm actually showing. So again, we have to understand what is a lie, because if we're saying that the transatlantic slave trade is a lie, then we must define what is a lie. And according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the dictionary definition of lying: make a false statement with the intentions to deceive. Yes. Again, I will say that the brother is very deceptive in what he introduces as far as his information is concerned. So we have to be mindful of that. Most widely accepted definition of a lie is a statement made by one who does not believe it with the intentions that someone else will. So let me get into my first thing. The reason why the transatlantic slave trade happened is because the Portuguese was looking for gold, and they were looking for other means of making profit. So when we have the origins of the transatlantic slave trade, another source that I have, let me make sure I got the right one. Damn, 5 minutes ain't gonna be enough, pistol. Cause I gotta okay, here it is right here. Origins of the transatlantic slave trade. And this is from EJI, and it talks about the origin. The enslavement of human beings, we know that it's been going on through history. The enslavement of people has been a part of human history. Slavery and human bondage has taken many forms, including enslaving people as prisoners of war, which is something that everybody liked to use. Many attributes of slavery began to change when European settlers intent on colonizing the Americas used violence and military power to compel forced labor from enslaved people. So who are these European nations? Let's talk about it. The European influence had no contact. Europe had no contact with sub-Saharan Africa before the Portuguese. The Portuguese actually started going up and down West and Central Africa coast, which is modern day Ghana, in 1471. And again, they went over there to do what? Interested in the gold trade. So they went over there looking for gold. But eventually, because of the demand for labor, this is the thing that the catalyst for the start of the transatlantic slave trade. So again, the countries that were involved in this over the following decades: the Spanish, the French, English, Dutch, Danish, and Swedes began to make contact with sub-Saharan Africa as well. Portugal soon converted Elmina into a prison for holding kidnapped Africans and European traffickers. Let's go to somebody from the Portuguese and how they started this thing back in 1441, but it also moved throughout South America. So Brazil is one of these places that started taking a lot of slaves. In fact, Portuguese took over 5 million slaves to that particular area. The great majority of the cases in the 16th century blacks of La Española, for which we have a more or less detailed archival record, are those who arrived in the colony through official authorized controlled travel, the equivalent to what we usually describe today as documented travels. So again, one of the earliest recorded licenses to carry black slaves was issued in September of 1502. I'm running out of little time. Let me see. I got the manuscript up here, where again, if you go to this particular site, firstblacks.org, that's my source, firstblack.org. Here is an actual goddamn primary source that we can get into in my second round. But thank you.
Hey, great job, my boy. Great job. You're doing good. Recorded numbers of slaves who embarked on ships as cargo during the intra-America slave trade by a broad region of disembarkment from 1526 to 1841 black first. Woo! Wow, I want you to pay some attention. You see these numbers? Spanish mainland America, Caribbeans, North America. These are all your disembarkments. You know who don't got a disembarkment in intraday America from 1526 to 1841? I know it hurt, right? Because see, y'all be forgetting other people be making statistical records too. And the intraday slave trade started in 1526 during the Santiago contracts. You know, intraday means same day trade, right? As in, well, if I can get you sold today, you're gone today, right? If I can get you sold today, you're gone today. Hold on, wait a minute. This can't be disingenuous, because I mean, mama, I can pull it up for you so you can read the numbers yourself. Because it seems like I'd be debating the comments more than I'd be debating you today. Now, when it comes to the mainland North Americans, you see the intraday slave trade. You see the Caribbeans. You see the Spanish and all this gray. All the gray you see on the screen is Spanish. Now, when we pull back out and then we go to look for the Africans, you know who we don't find? In the whole intraday slave trade historical process, we don't find no Africans. Let's just put them all back up real quick. Because I noticed that, bro. All these people on here, who did we not find? Black first. Who did we not find? Statistically, in the intraday slave trade in the Americas. I don't want to take all day doing this, but I just want folks to know this is the first part of the lie that they tell you that your slave trade history is called transatlantic. Y'all do know the word. Matter of fact, let me pull that up for y'all real quick. Let me give y'all a little game real quick. Now, when they say transatlantic, they never told us what the word trans mean, right? So it's a across, beyond, through, on the other side of, go beyond. So you got a trade that go beyond the Atlantic, right? But it's not in Africa because the trade isn't happening in Africa, like I mentioned earlier, because the Europeans didn't have enough power to fully conduct the trade there without recognition of the kingdoms. So without recognition of the kingdoms, Europeans don't got no powers, right? Unless you run around with the story saying they came and took us. Cross over, pass through, overcome. So if the intraday slave trade is all based in the Americas, all ship logs and disembarkments are in the Americas, most embarkments are in the Americas, that means that your slave trade story is kind of wrong, ain't it, Black First? Because do statistics lie on black folks? Or do statistics lie on the slave trade? There's got to be one or the other, my boy. But I'm going to go ahead and let you get to your next source. And then we going to flip that thing back around again.
Okay, TB didn't use his whole 5 minutes. Do y'all want to up it to 10 minutes around, or y'all good with the 5?
I want to go to either 7 or 10. I got too much fire over here for this kid.
He got a lot of fire over there, Pen. I don't need a lot of fire. I'm gonna spit at him and put it out.
Okay, well I'm put up to make it to 10. All right, I'll make it to 10. The next 3 rounds we doing 10. Let's get it.
Let me know when you're ready, Pen. Right. So again, just like he just admitted he's gonna do, he's just gonna spit all day. So we have to take note and look at the difference between how he's presenting his information using commentary and his own thought process versus going through and getting primary sources. This is an actual primary source of what we call the Treaty of Tordesillas. And the Treaty of Tordesillas was created in 1494. And again, this is a translation of this. So here, the Treaty of Tordesillas, 1493, Pope Alexander tried to end the Portuguese and Spanish dispute over land. So he drew an imaginary dividing line, a line of demarcation from north to south through the Atlantic Ocean. Let's just read a little bit about it. Whereas in a certain controversy exists between the said lords, there constitutes as to what land of all those discovered in the ocean sea up to the present day, the date of this treaty pertain to each one of said parts respectfully. Therefore, for the sake of peace and concord, pan-Europeanism, and for the preservation of the relationship and love of the said king of Portugal, for the said king and queen of Castile, Aragon, etc., it being the pleasure of their highness, they covenanted and agreed that a boundary or a straight line to be determined and drawn north and south from pole to pole on said ocean, from the Arctic to the Antarctic pole. This boundary shall be drawn straight as aforesaid at a distance of 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands, being calculated by degrees. I'll land right there with that particular one. So let's keep on moving on, because we have to understand what else did this Pope put out here. The Pope also put into play a thing called the bull Romanus Pontifex. And what this is, I'm going to have to try to see if I can shrink this down for you, right? Because again, these are primary sources. So what the Pontifex says is that oh, here it is right here. A large number of the no, that ain't it. Let me see. Okay, Alfonso. We're gonna go right here. Guinea, Antarctic Pole. And so it came to pass that when a number of ships of this kind explored and taken possession of very harbors, islands, and seas, they at length came to the province of Guinea. The province of Guinea. My source is the doctrine of discovery. That's what the Pontifex translate to the doctrine of discovery. So they came to the province of Guinea, and having taken possession of some islands and harbors and the sea adjacent to the province, sailing farther than they came. Right. So again, this is a letter to or this is for King Alfonso. Thence, right here, y'all. Thence also many Guineamen, meaning the Africans and other Negroes, taken by force and some by barter of unprofited articles or by other lawful contract. He said he gonna tell y'all there never was no contract. Lawful contract of purchase have been sent to the said kings. A large number of these have been converted to the Catholic faith, and it is hoped by the help of the divine mercy that if such progress be continued with them, either those people will be converted to the faith, or at least the souls of many of them will be gained for Christ. Let me go to another point where we talk about the Saracens, so we can get an understanding of the intent of these people. Okay, so here we therefore, weighing all and singular premises due to meditation, and noting that since we had formerly by other letters ours granted among other things free and ample faculty to the aforesaid King Alfonso to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ whosoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and movable. So again, these people, with the leadership, under the leadership of the Pope, they are given the directive to go out, to search for, to capture, vanquish, and subdue Saracens. And the Saracens, if you want to know what a Saracen is, Saracen was a word used for Arab Muslims as well as Black people of Africa. And we can just do a real quick search of that as well, so we can understand the meaning of words, because the words have meaning. Saracens, damn, I ain't put it, blacks. So we doing some real time shit here, but I got thousands of pages of this stuff. Okay, the word, okay, so Saracens, here it is right here. Let's pull that up so we can see what Saracen mean. The term Saracen was commonly used in medieval Europe to refer to people near ancient Rome, knew as Arabia. I can't say that word, but the Arabian desert. But it's also been applied to Africans. So let me see if I can find that on this one right here. I can't find it right there. So let me get that back up. So yeah, early usage, medieval, goddamn it, I can't do that. North African, yeah, okay, applied to North African Muslim populations through Europeans, often called Moor, specifically for Northwest Africans. So again, this is a synonym that was used to describe darker skinned people, invaders, and inhabitants of Africa and the Mediterranean. So again, I want y'all to see that this word is also applied to Africans, and not just the Muslim or Arab people. Let me see what this is. No, I don't want to go there. I wanted to show, because we all know that Brazil was one of the particular countries that had the most enslaved Africans, and that's why Brazil right at this moment has almost 200 million Afro Brazilians living there now because of this slave trade. So here's another primary source dated 1555, August the 13th. And then May 30th, 1556, in the city of Santo Domingo. The theme of it is a Portuguese ship arrived at the port of Santo Domingo La Española with a cargo of enslaved blacks. I know it's going to be kind of small, but again, the source is firstblacks.org. It was actually written in Portuguese, as you can see. This is not English. However, if you hit this translation button up here, it'll give you the English version of it. So please go to this particular website and take a look at it. So again, with the cargo of enslaved black Africans, but without a Spanish shipping license. So they were doing this stuff illegally. They were seized by the local colonial authorities and sold at an auction in Santo Domingo, and different social types from the city went to buy them. So again, a lot of people went down and bought these slaves. Let's go down here to where they give a description of some of these slaves. Help me, lawsuit. Let me see. I'm running out of time, but anyway, as you can see, first 97 black men, slaves, male and female, tall and short, with a very thin female slave who had nothing but the bones and could not stand by herself, so she was sick. Which are from the cargo of the said Francisco Canary, secretary of the King of Portugal.
The slave trade myth. One of the biggest myths about the slave trade is exactly where the slaves was getting dropped off at and how they was getting to America. Let's use Liverport for example, right? Liverpool. That's what it is. They say, sir, it is evidently extremely difficult to analyze the myth regarding slaves in Liverpool. The latest edition coming from Mr. Edmund Vale, the topographer, who is able to describe the sandstone chambers in which he says the slaves were kept awaiting shipment to America. A simple denial of the truth of these stories does not seem to prevent circulation of another variant. And I always find that funny how y'all's slave trade stories vary amongst each other like that, but it's still a one-all-fit-all story. But we gonna read a little bit more. Now it says here, oh shit, hold on. But perhaps the publication of a few authentications or authentic figures will help to prove that Liverpool had no use for the mysterious chambers described by Mr. Vale. In 1623, the first English so-called slave ships were registered, some at Bristol and the rest at London. In 1752, Liverpool had joined in the trade legalized by the Treaty of, the same one you were just talking about, right? No, that ain't the one you're talking about, but it's the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 and in 88. Small ships were registered. Small ships. You see that? Small ships in 88. Small ships were registered, right? At this port, from 1756 to 1771, records show that the total of 29 slaves were sold in England. Dang, black folks, because almost all being described as personal servants brought to this country with their owner and afterwards sold for various reasons. So the ships engaged in slave trades, but they telling you that in England, Only 29 slaves came through they motherfucking ports. And you know what the history is of black Americans? That y'all were shipped to Europe, then brought to North America by way of the English. You know, the Africans went to Liverpool. The Africans went to Bristol. The Africans went to all those other places, but a lot of these places are saying in England, that shit is a myth. So on to the next part. I'll be right back. Let me go grab the gym for you. Where the hell is my little girl at? Man, y'all sent so much shit on my phone.
Thank y'all for the gifts for me,
Can't
TV,
do a
and
fucking.
Black First. Thank y'all so much for the gifts.
I can't even find the fucking source. Fuck me. Hold on. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a brief history of black immigration in the United States. Black First, you know how y'all like to run around and say that y'all got birthright citizenships and y'all come from the descendants of the slaves? Well, according to the Immigration Acts of the United States, y'all would have still had to naturalize as Africans in being a descendant. No matter what port you was in, or even if you was in the Americas, your African self would have still had to register because you were still African naturally, especially all you unmixed ones, right? Yeah, and I said, y'all, anybody that claiming to be a descendant of a slave, let's read it out. Now, because this is an African document in this. And as we all can see, that immigration in the United States concept in or of itself did not exist prior to 1870. Though there did exist legislation governing who was considered a citizen within the United States, which was limited to free white persons. A good character. And from the very beginning, it was a racist endeavor. The first legislative act of its kind came about after a series of Chinese exclusion. Not African exclusion, but Chinese exclusions, by the way, because there was nothing that the Africans were doing that actually made these people want to put Africans into immigration law. But then they turned around and did. Now let's speak about it. There were lawsuits that were brought against the government for its policies of trying to keep Chinese people out of America. Not trying to restrict black folks from birthright citizenship, but keeping the Chinese from having rights in America. This is when we see the Naturalization Act of 1870, which is the first time created a system of control for the naturalization process, an act that becomes a U.S. citizen, which extended the naturalization process to aliens of African nativity and to persons of African descent. So you know what else is of African descent? A descendant of a slave. And you would have had to register, sir. It disproves a lot because it shows you're not an African. Homegrown Negro. That's all that is. Homegrown Negroes. Now, to all of you that know that like to use your folks first made census in 1870s, can you pull up a naturalization record? Because those folks wouldn't have even been naturalized as even child of slavery. They still wouldn't have been able to be considered citizens because they were not of good faith and goodwill. And the government didn't trust them. So they wouldn't have gave them birthright citizenship unless they was indigenous. Homegrown Negroes. Y'all think it's a joke, but do you not read the Immigration Acts? It says Africans and person of African descent. Are you not a person of African descent? Because how many Chinese people were born in America, left the Americas, came back and had to fight for their citizenship? What you think was going to happen to you Africans? Y'all had no rights. Not even in the early 1900s, you still had no rights. It went into the 1960s civil rights, and you still had no rights because that shit went under another Indian bill. But we finna get to all those gems in just a second. Let me goddamn get my other phone real quick. Go ahead and switch to Jet Pid.
All right, y'all, keep tapping the screen, share the live. Thank y'all for the gifts. And don't forget to sign a petition. Y'all know what petition I'm talking about. Oh, that is so cute. Y'all dropping the most cutest gifts. All right, we going on the third round. Black first, you ready? If you ain't ready, your ass better get ready. We on the third round.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. But again, this is crazy, right? So again, he want to talk about Liverpool. Of course, Liverpool absolutely had enslaved Africans. They sent out ships and so on and so forth. I'm trying to get this thing to blow up because this is an actual ship manifest. Let me see if I can bring it up another way that shows the people who invested in this particular said voyage, right? I know it's in cursive. I know a lot of y'all are younger than me, and it's going to be hard. So again, this is list of ships, right? A primary source from nationalarchive.gov. A list of ships employed in the trade from where, y'all? God damn it, let me turn this over this way. From Africa. This is a list of ships from Africa, right? From the port of Bristol. Again, Bristol. That's what he was just talking about. Liverpool, Bristol, all of that stuff is in the same place. So, for y'all who are not listening to him, he's doing exactly what I said that he would do. He's giving y'all a bunch of word salad with no ranch. Now, I know some people don't like ranch or French dressing. It is what it is. But when we are having an academic conversation or debate, we must use the information. Because again, remember, he is a person that is saying the transatlantic slave trade was a lie. But let's just look at this a little bit, right? So again, on the Gold Coast, that's Africa. On the Gold Coast, that's Africa. So the number of slaves and the value of the ship's cargo. See, I know how to read cursive. So a ship called the Triton. Let me take this off my little stand so I can get y'all a little close because I don't know if I can blow it up too much. Okay, so again, from the Gold Coast, the ship name is Triton. It had 450 slaves on it, and the value of those slaves were $10,000. This is a primary source. We're not freestyling here. This ain't no freestyle rap battle. This is a conversation between two people who stand on being truthful and honest, and that's what this is about. Trying to make sure that we ain't lying. The errors, I don't know that word. Something antelope. Yeah, that's what that is. Antelope. Antelope had 230 slaves on there for a value of $5,000. The Alexander. Also, 450 slaves, $8,500, and so on and so forth. So for this man to continue to try to make the transatlantic slave trade out to be a lie, it was all about the money. So 5,180 slaves, totaling the value of $103,100, right? So on the same manifest here, again, from the Bight of Benin. That's African. That's African. Bonnie and Caliber. This is from Africa. So if the transatlantic slave trade was not happening, why are they in the Bight of Benin? And why are they on the Gold Coast of Africa taking these numbers of slaves and bringing them over here to America and or Europe? Because again, we understand that this is the transatlantic slave trade, which was a part of the triangular trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. So here's some more ships. The Planter, let's look them up. The Indian Princess. And then what I'm going to do is take some of these real quickly, right? I'm going to take some of these. I'm going to take the Planter, and then we're going to go to slavevoyages.org. Let me see if I got that up here right quick. And we're going to show y'all that this is not a lie. So remember, I said that the name of that ship was called the Planter. Let's see if we can find the Planter in this database, okay? Let's look up a ship. Let's see, ship. Let's go, name of vessel. Hold on one second. I want to go here. I want to go down to the name of the vessel. And we're going to put in the word Planter. Plantar. As you can see, I typed it in. Let's go back to make sure that we got that correct. Boom. Here it is. Oh, it's with an E. P-A. Okay. So again, we off. Black, you off a little bit. Let's go back over here and put ER in here so we can be doing this all real time. And this is what research looks like. Again, not having all of this conversation. So the Planter, look what came up, y'all. Whoa. So this dude is trying to tell us that this is a lie. I went from one source to another source. Year of arrival, 1742, 1744, 1746, so on and so forth. From where? Liverpool, Bristol. Words that came out of his mouth came from where? Africa, the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast. Hold on now. This goes on and on. Right? Cape Town, Cape Coast. Ended up in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, places, the Americas. This is where these people got off, right? And here's numbers of slaves that embarked and then disembarked after the voyage was over. So the first time they went over there, they had 100%. All they people made it. Everybody survived. The second time, 178 got on the ship, only 156 survived. 255 got on the ship, only 226. So again, he is telling y'all not to believe what you're seeing and what you're hearing, to go off of what he is telling y'all is the truth. Yet the brother has not presented one primary source to help his argument. Let's go to my, we're going to go to my, what's the name here? So again, we talked about the Treaty of Tordesillas. Another thing we have is the Asianto, or the contract allowing the specific, the subjects of Great Britain, the liberty of importing Negroes into Spanish America. So again, when we are having this is another primary source, and it comes from slavery and dreamembrace.org. You can look it up for yourself. I do have my sources up here. So what this does, through all major European maritime powers and increasingly North American merchants involved themselves in slave trading, the transatlantic slave trade continued to be dominated by the Portuguese, especially after Britain and the United States passed laws in the early 19th century, that's the 1800s, that made the trade illegal. From 1526 to 1867, the Portuguese loaded 5,783,000 Africans for Brazil with an estimated 2,208,000 captives shipped in the illegal slave trade between 1808 and 1867. So again, when we're having these particular discussions, you got to come prepared, and you got to come a little bit more better than what you're doing. And then you keep on giving up your time. And I just don't really understand that. So if you go to, and here's another data verse from Harvard University. And it's called the Mary Marano Inventory Slave Database. You can go here and over 1,417 downloads. This inventory slave base contains extracted information about the lives of 8,188 enslaved Africans and their descendants. So you talked about the word descendant. Of course, we understand that because we are over here in America, because our ancestors didn't have autonomy over their bodies and couldn't make these choices. They couldn't go register to be naturalized. The Naturalization Act of 1870 is what gave us our nationality, our ability to be considered United States citizens. All Africans were given their citizenship according to the 1870 Naturalization Act.
So you're admitting that y'all should have naturalization records, right? And I'm glad you just admitted that. Like I'm so proud of you, Black First. I'm so proud of you because you really just said that all African and African descendants should have naturalization papers, whether you know it or not, whether you had the opportunity to or not. You should be able to pull up one, and you did a great job in saying that. Now, let's talk about the NAACP. There was never much violence in comparison, and there has been very little in the past 2 years, he said. The minister attributes this to historical background, enlightened office holders, and indigenous Negro leaders. I didn't know the NAACP was going around calling themselves indigenous Negro leaders in the southern states. Oh yes, this is very real. This is an actual news article. Now, what I find funny is, y'all will pull up an African document with no problem. You never pull up any indigenous Negro documents. So yes, sir, this is very real. And you know how real it is? It's so real that the fact that you can actually go in the newspaper archives, type in indigenous Negro leadership, and you would find you some, right? So let's go back to the beginning of the article so y'all can see exactly what article it is. It's the SC Anti-Negro Violent Minimal, 1969, February the 11th. And it's a great gem, man. You ought to go read it because it talk about how people migrating from the north are trying to change the demographics of the indigenous Negroes in the South. It's crazy. Because Southern Negroes were always on their indigenous shit, when Northern Negroes were the ones always kicking some Pan-African shit. You know how that's like, ain't it, Black First? You kind of Northern a little bit, even though you from the Midwest. Oh no, that's just to let y'all know that anytime that y'all get to talking like that, y'all always got to remember there are people who knew they were indigenous. Now let's get to the point of the matter. Now, when I go into that book I was showing you earlier about slaves or servants coming from England or Europe to the Americas, right? I actually can pull out actual names of these servants and slaves. Unfortunately, these servants and slaves also be having genealogical ties to them. Unlike your Africans who never have genealogical ties to them, you know, they family line somehow get cut off by 1870 and you guys be lost. And what I did was I went and ran this and had an analysis ran on how many Africans are documented in this book. You know how many Africans are documented in this book, Black First? None. all the Negroes and the Christian servants were said to be of Europe. It's crazy work, ain't it? Nigga, you seen what the source you seen what the source was earlier. I'll pull it back up for you. Just so your people won't cry and they can go look it up themselves. Because, you know, they always need a research. Now, the original list, persons of quality: immigrants, religious exile, political rebels, serving men sold for a term of years, apprentices, children sold, maidens pressed, and others who went from the Great Britain to the American plantations. Oh, damn. From the Great Britain to the American plantations. You know, this your 1600s through 1700. This would be around the time of your 1619 and all, right? And my particular question is, since we having this debate about the origins of slavery and whether slaves came to America, because you didn't debunk the intraday slave trade, you didn't debunk what trans mean when it comes to the slave trade. So what I would like to ask you is, can you show me another document that's close to something that says 20 and odd? Just one document in this whole world that's recorded historically as the same as John Ross. One document, Black First. If you can present one document outside of John Ross' letter that says 30 and odd, 100 and odd, 40 and odd, 17 and odd, you could win this debate right now. That's all you got to do, is present another mathematical source that says a number and odd as a representation and count of property or people. And you can win this debate right now. That's all you got to do. Because that letter is the most important letter of your whole history, because it's the beginning of it when it comes to the United States. So, let's see that letter get presented, and we're going to go ahead and flip this on over, because I don't need all my time. We need that 20, we need another 20 and odd document, my boy.
You ready for me to pass you up, or are you gonna use your 3 minutes?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, this is the fourth round.
All right. So again, the topic of this discussion is whether or not this is the transatlantic slave trade a lie. I don't have to debunk the intro, whatever he said. I don't have to debunk what the word trans mean in this statement. I don't have to show somewhere in history where the phrase 20 and so odd Negroes exists outside of the documentation from the Encyclopedia of Virginia, which lets you know that these 20 and so odd Negroes were delivered to Virginia in 1619. I don't have to do that. So why is he asking me to do that? That's not the topic of the debate. And just to go to this book that he's bringing up, and like I told y'all, pay attention. Pay attention to my opponent and what he's doing, right? My opponent brought up a book and he started talking about it because they don't list no Africans. So I asked Google, was the book the original list of quality written about Africans? And no. The original list of persons of quality was not written about Africans. It is an 1874 genealogical compilation by John Camden Houghton listing European immigrants, indentured servants, contract workers, and political rebels who went from Great Britain to the American colonies between 1600 and 1700. We're talking about indentured servants, but yet he brings that up as if that's like a got you. I don't understand why he did that. But anyway, I'm still on the mission to prove to you. So far, I started in Brazil. I've worked my way up. So let's talk about some laws that were actually put in place. Le Code Noir. Right? The Code Noir was black code. It was a decree passed by King Louis V of France. This guy right here. Damn, why it ain't showing it? My bad. Oh, here he is. Damn. Keep on going off. There you go. That's the man who put this together. Defining the conditions of slavery in the Antilles. That's West Indies, if y'all don't know. West Indies, if y'all don't know. Then also in Louisiana, and served as a code for slavery conduct in the French colonies up until 1789, the year marking the beginning of the French Revolution. The decree restricted the activities of free people of color, mandated conversions to Catholicism for all enslaved people throughout the empire, defined the punishment meted out to them, and ordered the expulsion of all Jews from France. So these are laws that govern this particular slavery thing. We have also the Black Codes. The Black Codes were laws that were implemented here in the United States. So again, you have from ncanchor.org, the Black Codes, sampling of the Black Codes. By 1776, people freed and enslaved made up approximately 20% of the population across the 13 colonies. Long before the American Revolution, however, colonies had been passing legislation to regulate the institution of slavery. So again, below is the transcript of slaves and free persons of colors, an act concerning slaves and free persons of color, which chronicles legislation passed in North Carolina surrounding enslaved people and people of color for the years 1741 to 1831. So let's just look at a couple of them. Slaves cannot go armed. So that just letting you know that they couldn't have no pew-pews back then. No slave to go off his master's plantation without leave and writing. Slaves not to raise stock. Slaves not fed and stealing corn. Injured person may sue the owner. Oh, damn, slaves we knew that? Okay. Slaves, no slave can teach another to read. Slaves not to sell spirituous liquors. Damn, man, I couldn't have been a slave because I love my goddamn Bacardi so much. I couldn't have been a slave, man. I'd have had to off the plantation owners. Negroes not to meet for the purpose of dancing without written permission. Damn, we couldn't even dance. I was dancing my ass off yesterday. But again, this man is telling y'all that the transatlantic slave trade is a lie. Let me show you something, another primary source. Let me bring this up right quick because, again, we do this. I think I got enough time. Let me find my other source. Definition. Oh, no, I don't want that one. We don't need that one. We need the one with origin slave. Give me 1 second. Oh, let's move to the money. Let's move to the money real quick. Let's move to the money. I'm going to show y'all this. Again, this is an article from racism.org. And then what this article says is the shocking list of 10 companies that profited from the slave trade. 10 companies, right? It is no secret that slavery rests at the foundation of American capitalism and is often synonymous with the sugar, tobacco, and or cotton plantations that fueled the Southern economy. What many may not know, and I don't know, TB, I don't think you know this because, again, you think that this is a lie. What many may not know is that slavery also rests at the foundation of many notable corporations. From New York Life to Bank of America, several companies have benefited from slavery. Many of those companies even acknowledged their involvement in slavery and offered apologies in an attempt to reconcile their tainted history. But An apology is not enough. So let's look at some of these companies. New York Life. New York Life was founded. Life found that its predecessor, Noctilus insurance company, sold slaveholder policies during the mid 1800s. Tiffany and Co. Man, I done bought my wife some Tiffany shit. I didn't know they was a part of this shit. Tiffany and Co. was originally financed with profits from a Connecticut cotton mill. Aetna Insurance insured the lives of slaves during the 1850s. Brooks and Brothers, Norfolk Southern Railroad, Bank of America, USA Today, Wachovia, AIG, American International Group. All of these companies have benefited. They benefited then, and they continue to benefit today. But like it said, some of these corporations have somewhat apologized for their role in slavery. And then I do have a statement from one. Lloyd's of London. Hopefully I can get through this. Our full statement on Lloyd's of London's market's role in the slave trade. Lloyd's of London has a long and rich history dating back over 330 years. It's older than the United States of America. The United States of America is only 250 years, but this company was around way before the inception. In particular, we are sorry for the role played by Lloyd's of London in the 18th and 19th century slave trade. This was appalling. This was an appalling, shameful period of British history, as well as our own. And we condemn the indefensible wrongdoing that occurred during this period. So guess what Lloyd's of London did in order to show that they gonna put their money where their mouth is, right? What Lloyd's of London do, y'all? Lloyd's of London spent over $64 million. Let me find that article right quick if I got a little bit more time. Lloyd's of London spent over $64 million to, I ain't gonna have enough time to get it up. But yeah, again, Lloyd's of London spent over $64 million that they gave to different organizations that were on the fight in the forefront of this fight, holding them accountable for their role in slavery. And so I digress. Appreciate that.
Same book, Black First. Number of Negroes. Same book, Black First. Number of Negroes. I thought I didn't know Negroes was from Europe. I didn't know that. Did you know that? Because I didn't know that. I'm confused, bro. You told me that the book said they didn't mention Africans and Negroes, because I know it didn't mention Africans, but I didn't say that it didn't mention Negroes. Who's these European Negroes? Well, damn. Pinned you again, huh? Because I'm confused now. I'm baffled. I'm astute. I'm astounded. Whichever word they got them use. Flabbergasted, if you might want to say. Because how? What happened? This is the same book. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So, it just throws me off a little bit, man, when y'all be like, oh, this computation from this computer say this. But then when we go in the book, it says, Oh, it was Negroes from Europe. And they was prisoners. And they had money too. Oh yeah, this the same book. The same book. Same motherfucking book. But we can get to a better version of history, right? Because see, forgotten indigenous child slaves of New France revealed in new studies. Historical accounts between 1632 and 1760 show a chilling reality of 734 indigenous children were enslaved in France, North American colonies. These children, torn from their families and transported far away were subjects to a system in which they were considered to be commodities to be purchased, sold, and utilized as labor. Quebec historian Dominique Deslander illustrates the largely forgotten page in Canadian history. Now, Black first, you know, usually when they show you Canadian kids, they show you little Mongolians. Who are all these niggas in this picture? Who are all these niggas in this picture? You got a couple little white kids. But who are all these little nigga babies? Cause this is how the man wanted to make sure you saw it illustrated, right? Now, as we go through this article, and it talks about while slavery amongst the indigenous people existed before the contacts of European, the French, and then the British introduced a more rigid, permanent, from base of Roman law, right? So you see how the baby follow the belly law was even in Canada. Let's go down a little bit. So it's a historian once reckoned that there were around 4,000 slaves in New France. However, recent evidence indicate that the actual number could have been as high as 10,000 of those who had been identified by age. Close to half were under the age of 12 when last recorded, right? So, you know, this is the photo that they use again. Black woman and her child being separated from each other on an auction block. I don't know why the Canadian historian wanted to use the African photos. Because that's what y'all call them, right? African slave photos. But the penises, right? And as you can see, they had only first names. That's crazy because y'all African records be only having first names. I find that funny. I find that real funny because you pulled up a French record and it only had first names on it. Wow. Is that how the French is rocking Black first? That's cool. So the demand for child labor was triggered by colony growing agriculture needs, right? Because, you know, Africans weren't coming here to pick no booger sugar, no tobacco, or no cotton. Domestic work and the desire to control loyal, obedient workers. African slaves were relatively rare and expensive. I wonder why they were so rare and expensive to Canada when Canada was right up the street where Nova Scotia is, where they were sending slaves all the time through apprenticeship. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 quick second. Let me see if I can find it. I would use that, but I ain't gonna take you up through there with that. I'm trying to find these old apprenticeship articles. But you know, slavery was banned in 1807, right? Now, slavery was banned in 1807, and apprenticeship is something that I'd like to talk about a lot. So, New Brunswick, long and little known history of assimilating indigenous children. Province did not have residential school, but there were schools with same missions, right? Hold on, it's a little blurry. And it's telling you that in the mid-1870s, this is a photo of what they had going on in the Library of Congress. So when the School of the Indigenous Children of New Brunswick has its own dark secrets, a residential school was never established in the province, but it was home to an institution with the same objective, the assimilation of indigenous children into settler culture. Across the country, people have been grappling with the discovery of the remains of an estimate 215 children buried near the school in Camp Loops, BC. What many in New Brunswick may not realize is that the Providence had some of the earliest schools established to separate indigenous children from their family language and culture. The early school pushed a Protestant message on indigenous children who received little in the way of education and were ultimately forced to work as unpaid labor. That's crazy because we never heard that before about an indigenous child. We thought that was all Africans, right? And realizing that these residential schools, which the Native Americans only talk about boarding schools, right? Because they can't tell you about cultural assimilation through apprenticeship. We do not think there is no history of residential schools here, so we have not been forced to confront this part of our historical past. Damn. Crazy again. It is hard to reconcile when you don't know the full scope and nature of a problem. So, Black first, when you sit outside the CBC website, right, they say New Brunswick long and little known history of assimilating indigenous children. The indentured servant contract, when was introduced in 1807, allowed indigenous children to sign up their indigenous people to sign up their children for apprenticeship. That's crazy as hell. Because I always be asking y'all, how did the slaves get paid exactly? How were they able to purchase freedom without getting paid? Somebody had to have a trade skill, right? Pan-African came on my live last night and said, hey, came on Penn's live yesterday and said, my granddaddy, he on record. Guess what his record said? Carpenter by trade. So you know what that means, Black first? When you are something by trade, your ass is under apprenticeship and your ass ain't no slave. Was niggas running away from their job? Is that the reason why they call you African Americans lazy? Were you running from work? You ain't getting paid enough for your labor? You couldn't pay the tax on the bracket? Something was wrong, because y'all end up losing all your land by the mid-1900s. You end up having to fight for rights to be able to vote, to be able to keep something. So I'm just trying to figure it all out, because at this point that we done had this debate and this discussion about this transatlantic slave trade, I can clearly see, bro, that you didn't come actually prepared. And I proved a lot just then. Whether you know it or not, apprentices get paid, baby.
Okay, if y'all coming on the panel, I'm letting everybody up equally.
Let's do a closing statement for about 3 minutes.
All right.
Right. So in closing, again, the topic of this debate is the transatlantic slave trade a lie? And I've gone through several points to show that it actually is the truth. I presented historical and archival evidence, documents, ship logs, apology letters. I cited, I didn't cite this though, which I was supposed to. It showed that we have a particular burial site that you guys were pissed off because the Ghanaian president came over here. Let me show y'all this real quick. That lets you know that even genetically, after they found all of these bodies in a burial site, 419. Oh damn, I got it on me. My bad. I'm sorry. 419 Africans and over 500 individual artifacts were found at this site in New York called the New York Burial Site. So again, I don't know what TB, where he get off thinking that he showed anything that would support the statement that the transatlantic slave trade is a lie. He has not done that whatsoever. I've also acknowledged the scale, the scope of how this affected the people, whether it be in here in the Americas or around the world. Historical facts are facts. They can be substantiated by doing exactly what I've done. I've done today. They can be verified through all of these records, and in fact, 123 nations from around the world just agreed in March of 2026 that the transatlantic slave trade is the worst crime known to humanity. So for somebody to come up on panel and act as if they are the authority over 500 years of enslavement and subjugation, oppression, laws created to destroy them, and we're still here, and to have people who look like that say these things, I mean, it's dreadful. But
Black first, you do too much. Nah, you did all that preaching to get nowhere, buddy. You still ain't proved the point of how you are African in descent. None of y'all have any genealogical ties to those people. And I'm gonna finish showing you how un-African y'all are, right? So, when it comes to the country of Ghana, right? I got a few documents that'll tell you how your Afro culture came to Ghana and it didn't exist in that place. And how un-African you are as a people with your Pan-African Afro culture. Because African boys couldn't wear afros, and African girls could only buy the American wig. Have you ever heard of the Aunt Jemima or the Mississippi dashiki? I don't think you have. Let me see if I can get a better document, because these are kind of blown up. Damn, all them shit big. What the fuck? I really... Alright, shout out to my little brother Soul for this one. Damn. Hey, can you switch the panel around so I can try to blow this, so I can try to put this picture on the screen? I don't know why it's this fucking wide. It might be doing that on purpose, but fuck it. Anyway, when it talks about the Afro wig comes to Africa, it went straight to that same country, Ghana, who used that weak ass Aunt Jemima speech to prove they point in Africa when the Aunt Jemima didn't come into existence until the 1960s and 70s. There was no Aunt Jemima before the 1960s and 70s. She's a made up Afro wig wearing peasant from Africa who won Miss Accra and went into the world's beauty pageant. But maybe you should get this article and go read about it, since you want to use the Ghana president as a representation of who your people are when he sat there and blatantly lied to you about the Aunt Jemima history. Damn, Black first. You thought Aunt Jemima was an African slave. Aunt Jemima was an African who want to be an American.
So I did not consider this a debate. This was not a debate. First of all, his first 5 minutes, for the first 2 minutes, he started saying what he was going to do, what TB Adams was going to do in his debate. He wasted 2 minutes of his time to talk trash about the opponent. If you were in a debate class, you would get kicked out for that. I've never been in a college course where it runs that way, so I don't know. In college, you do that in a debate class, you'd be kicked out the class. I've never heard of nothing like that. Second of all, he was trying to say that because he's older than a lot of us Gen Z people, we probably can't read the cursive. But he literally couldn't read the word "to" in cursive. It said going to Africa. He said it says from Africa. So he's too slow to read the word "to" in cursive. He thinks "to" translates to "from." So I just stopped listening after that. After I found out he couldn't read basic cursive, I was like, he's trolling because there's no way. So I don't know if y'all were present for the rest of the debate, but I stopped listening after he couldn't read basic cursive. So I don't know about the rest of y'all, but let's get some smart people to debate next time. Some people who can read basic cursive next time, please. So the rest of y'all can talk, but I would like to get some cursive readers up here next time, please. And I noticed he also didn't care that indigenous people were enslaved in this country either. Didn't even acknowledge it once, which is giving a racist to me.
I think that we focusing on the timeline of just slavery and what was going on. I don't think we was focusing on what was going on during those times. You saying that they were able to bring over large bulk numbers of, captives from Africa. But you have to remember when you were describing the Code Noir and the Black Codes, those all happened at different times. And the countries were at war. They weren't just shipping goods from the West or the Americas back to France. They had to get that stuff there. A lot of their cargo ships were being kidnapped, sank, and so on and so forth. So it wasn't as easy as it sounds that, 64 million were brought over or whatever the case is. I think that is kind of just being brushed over. But I got my laptop with me today, so I see what Sir Walter Riley wrote. I'm going to quote him right here. I'm reading it. It says, Riley's writing often described Native Americans as physically robust with dark complexions and distinct facial features. They were portrayed as skilled hunters in fishing and agriculture with knowledge of the land and resources. Riley and his men noted that their bows and arrows were pottery or woven garments, so on and so forth. But it's a lot
Blackjack, I don't mean to interrupt you. Let me tell the votes real quick. The votes, it was 62 votes, and that don't make no sense. It's 200 something people in here the whole time, and only 62 people voted.
Redo the poll. Redo it.
52.20.
Yeah, redo it because I didn't even know it was
Hold on, y'all cannot say this and then we can redo it. Can I finish? 52.23% TB, Black first 46.77. So I'm about to put the poll up again for another 5 minutes. I'm not sure why it's saying y'all can't vote. The votes be up in the left corner. And I'm about to put it up right now. Get ready to vote.
Anybody who voted for someone who couldn't read the word "to" in cursive is illiterate. So.
Hey, little girl. Since you want me to dignify,
you were trying to be funny and say Gen Z can't read cursive. You were trying to be funny and say people younger than you can't read cursive, but you can't read the word "to."
Don't mute. Come on, y'all. Don't mute, y'all.
There's nothing you can say to me.
Do I have to listen to this?
Learn cursive. There's nothing you can say to me. Learn cursive.
Again, here it is. When it comes down to the information, I won't dignify. Excuse me.
You don't know cursive. You're a grown man and don't know cursive.
Would you shut your dumb ass up?
No, there's nothing you can say to me. Learn cursive.
So learn cursive. And let's stay on top.
Learn cursive.
Okay.
Black first. Black first.
Chill.
This TV,
chill.
Bro, don't
You're illiterate.
Chill.
You're illiterate.
But no, she's being rude, bro.
You're
Y'all
illiterate.
know how I feel about
You're
rude
illiterate. Learn cursive.
Your mama's illiterate.
It's showtime.
My mama
sure
knows
your mama
cursive.
is absolutely illiterate.
Learn cursive, illiterate bastard.
This is crazy.
Oh, wait.
Crab want to get up here and run her.
3 minutes is too long. Hold on. 3 minutes is entirely too long. Let me fix that, and then we're going
to learn cursive.
It's 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can't vote either.
Yeah, because I can't. People saying they can't vote. They can't even see it in the corner up there.
I see it, but it won't.
Is it a way? Is it a way that you can bring it? Because I've seen on panels where you can bring it down. I've seen it where you can bring it down at the bottom of it versus having it in the corner. Is it a way you can move it, Pen, so people can see?
It just come up one time for me, and then it pops out on me too.
But it should be cool in the top. I don't get how they can't click on it.
Yeah, it's at the top
I
left.
was able to click on it on
Okay, now people saying they can see it. Okay, they got it. They got it. All right, let's do the showtime, y'all.
Well, y'all got. I bet.
All right. So again, I appreciate you, Penn, for allowing me to come over here and present my information. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, TB, you right. I ain't gonna crash out. I'll catch her on another panel and show her how I really get down. Again, when it comes down to having a dialogue like we do, I appreciate the opportunity, even though I know for sure TB, you ain't look too good. I mean, yeah, you got the votes and win is a win. Congratulations if that's the case. But at the same time, hey, we know what this is all about. It's all about the information. So appreciate everybody for tuning in and voting and listening and so on and so forth. You guys could have been doing anything else. But again, it's all good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm 25. I'm 2001, and we definitely learned cursive in elementary school and middle school. It's not my fault y'all don't know cursive at your big ass ages. I'm pretty sure most of y'all's documents, legal documents, were in cursive at the time y'all were born, and yet y'all can't you can't read no damn cursive. You ought to be ashamed. You ought to be ashamed. At your big age, you don't know no damn cursive. And you was trying to be slick, talking about something. I know y'all are younger than me, so, you can't read that cursive. Bitch, it was all projection. And anybody that voted for that, you're illiterate just like him. Okay? Now you skip me, illiterate dumbasses.
The Afro Wig Comes to Africa by Russell Warren Howe. Accra, Ghana. As everybody knows, when Black Americans began leaving their hair natural and growing it a few years back, it was a gesture to identify with Africa. What is perhaps less widely known that the hairstyle in question is not seen in Africa itself. Although engravings indicate that it was once vogue in medieval Ethiopia. Because African hair is long and hard to keep clean and painful to comb, industrials soon came up with the Afro wig for aficionados. Let me get to the rest of this story.
Blackjack.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute, but it's always gonna be holes in the story. I'm not gonna disagree with them bringing African slaves over here, but again,